Hey everyone, it's Saoirse. Happy Sunday. I do try to put out videos every Sunday and Wednesday if you haven't noticed. I hope everybody's first week of the new year has been going all right. Started out like thinking this is the new year, new me, like I do every year. Then fell into a crippling depression for a couple of days, kind of still there. I found that I really just have to stick to a routine or I go nuts. So anyway, please do share, subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you haven't yet. That would help me out a lot. Happy to be with you today to talk about book covers. I was thinking, what can I do for a video today, because I haven't finished a book in a little while, because I'm reading a long one right now. So what can I talk about that's not a specific book? Well, I have a ton, this is not even half, of books here to show you some examples of covers that I love, and covers that I don't really love, and covers that deceived me a bit. Now, let me explain. When I say deceived, I either picked it up and I liked the cover and I ended up not loving the book, or the opposite. I didn't like the cover, but I love the book. And the ones that I don't love are books that I love. So I don't love the covers, but I either knew that I was going to like the book or I gave it a chance anyway. And this is just it was an interesting exercise for me in how I do judge books by their cover and by their titles as well. I'm looking around to see, I probably missed some that I should have chosen, because I do have a ton of books in front of me as well as the ones behind me, and I'm gonna have a fun time putting these all back on the shelf. So what you will see in these is that I love a simple cover. I like a graphic cover. I don't love the use of photographs usually, unless they are utilized in a way that is extremely simple and clean. When the whole cover of a book is a photograph, it looks cheap to me usually. It looks sort of, not to knock like self-publication or whatever, because I know I have made covers for my own books that are not published using photographs and whatever. So I get it. It's fun to design your own cover, and we're not all graphic artists, so you work with what you've got. But for me, don't love when it's just a photograph and there's not also a design element to it. Fonts are really important to me. Fonts can say a lot about what the publisher is trying to present. I was going to say the author, but of course we know usually the author doesn't have much input into a book cover, unfortunately, which makes me really sad and also scares me. Like, hypothetically, what if I ever publish a book and they choose a horrific cover and I don't want my name attached to that cover, because I do get swayed so much by covers. And I'm the type of person who goes into a bookstore and just looks around. Like, I don't typically have an idea of what I'm looking for. Sometimes I do. I'm not somebody who takes like a lot of recommendations from people. I just go like, oh, thank you, but I know what I like. Maybe I should be more open-minded, but I usually do really well just going to the bookstore and looking around. And if I like the cover and I like the title, then I'll read the back. If I like what I read on the back, then I might get it. I have lucked out so many times, but I will show you some examples of, everything. So for the ones that I love, let's start off with this one. This is Dark Sparkler by Amber Tamblyn. And I'm gonna keep checking to like make sure the camera's focused. This one I love because it's graphic, and I will talk about this a few times probably. It has spot varnish on it. So that's when there's a part of a book, just a part of the cover, that has this like shiny texture to it. You can feel it, and it's different to the texture of the rest of the book. So I really, really love covers that use spot varnish. I don't know why, that just really appeals to me. It gives a dimension to the book. So I just like this. They put the author's name and the title in the same font, in the same text size, right next to each other. There's nothing punching you in the face about like, it's this author. It's very subtle and humble, And if you, like, you don't know what the book's about, obviously, at first, but this is a book of poetry all about women who died. People who were, these were actresses and really well-known, famous people who died early. And I think that that is represented really well in this cover. Also, she signed it for me. I love her. She's so great. I've met her a couple times. This one is an example of, I had no idea what it was about, had never heard of it before, and just picked it up off the shelf because look at this iridescent cover. This is Silence in the Age of Noise by Erling Kage, and I just, like, look. One thing I love is when covers go all the way across. I think that is so clever and so wonderful. Oh yeah, I might have to go pick up another. No, I don't feel like it. But there's a Titanic book that is also like that, where it's like the whole Titanic across the cover when you open it up. And this one's fantastic. It's nonfiction. I love it. And it's really beautiful on the inside too. I could tell from the cover that it was going to be calming. And it is just that. It's kind of like there's this whole spread here. I feel like this is a case where the cover represented the book really well, because it was this sense of silence that I think you get this piece from looking at the cover. This one, scary topic, but I think effective cover. This is Columbine by Dave Cullen, and it's my kind of cover where it's the title, not too crazy, just really simple, and then if you're using a photograph, use it in this way where it doesn't take up the entire book. I don't like when it takes up the entire book, so it's just the school, and I think that comes across as so impactful. Just sky, and then like right here, just the school. It just gives me chills. I just think that's a really well designed cover. This one, On Trails by Robert Moore. I think, doesn't this just kind of get across what it is? It's going to be about trails. And I picked it up because I think, yeah, I had just finished through hiking the Appalachian Trail, and I was in Portland, Maine, and I was in a bookstore, and I saw this, and it mentioned the Appalachian Trail on the back, and I was like, okay, cool. I'd like to read more about trails, and this was a really interesting book, but the cover is so cool because it's not quite spot varnish, it's more like indented in here. I don't know if you can tell. But again, just really graphic, but really simple and effective. And it's so hard because there are covers that are close to something like that I would just think, that doesn't work for me, because it almost, like, I don't like when covers just have some sort of abstract design and it just doesn't feel like it means anything about what the book is, and you thought you'd throw a splashy design on a cover and people would buy it. Don't like that. This is a great one, Wild. Now this is one where you could go, and this is by Cheryl Strayed, where you could go in a different direction and you could do the whole photograph thing, or you could do like a really pretty, I much prefer art, like photographs are art, but you know what I mean, like a painting style thing or a graphic art thing, something that's not a photograph. I prefer that to just one big photograph, but this uses photography and it's not covering the entire book, which I like. I like all lowercase. That excites me for some reason. I do not love when books do this, and I know it's like they have to do it, but I think it ruins a cover, like completely ruins it. If you're gonna do that, just put one of those stickers that can be easily removed. Keyword easily. But to put that on there forever, I don't like that. But I love just the simple shoe, and you can see how weathered it is, how beat up, and that gives you a vibe right away in such a simple, quick way. Dune, I feel like I'm always talking about Dune recently, but I just love this cover because graphic, uses art instead of photography, Again, I know, I'm sorry, photographers, I know it's art. And you just have this tiny little figure. I love the colors, the use of color. I think, like, once you read the book, it works so well. The sky, which is talked about a lot. It's just really cool. It's a cool cover, and they ruined it. But yeah, that's a good one. And all of the Dune books are really well designed, I think. I'm reading the third one right now. Here's another one, Truman Capote in Cold Blood. So this is similar to the Columbine book, where it's just, if you're going to use photography, simple. And then most of the action happens down at the bottom. It's funny because I am not a minimalist in my life, like you can tell. I'm pretty much a maximalist, but I love sometimes minimalist book covers. Because I think with a book, like, you're trying to sell something that sometimes we don't have any idea what it's about, and we're just going to pick it up and judge based on what we see first. And so it's important to not complicate it. Just something that grabs you but doesn't overwhelm you is good when it comes to books, in my opinion. And I just think that's a good cover because, yeah, it's such a tragedy. Like, what are you going to put on a cover? You don't want it to be, like, exploitative or whatever. I just think that looks nice. Oh, it's another Truman Capote, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Again, just graphic, simple. I like the font used. I just like the, like, optical illusion element of peeling back the cover to reveal this. I just think that's a good one. Now this one, you know, it's my favorite modern novel, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. And this one, like, do I love the color, this particular green? No, absolutely not. But this is the perfect cover for this book. And there have been, like, some other covers that I definitely don't like as much. This original one is perfect because this book is about dissociation and being on the fringes of life, not participating in your life. So what's better than this person just standing in the corner, like, being as unassuming as possible. You might not even, like, notice him. And then the tiny, tiny little font, because it just, like, as somebody who has depersonalization disorder and experiences severe and upsetting dissociation because I can't participate like I would like to, it just really gets to me because you just try to be, you sort of almost stop existing, which is what this cover feels like to me. Like, everything is up here that has to do with Charlie, the main character, and it could basically, like, disappear. It's practically leaving the book anyway. Yeah, it's just a super effective cover, and then on the back you get these 3 images of him never really showing himself. And we have another of my favorite books, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This one is great because it uses this swirling pattern. Now, normally I don't like just patterns, like, oh, it's a pattern on a book, woohoo. You know, you really thought that one out, but this, because of the image she uses of, like, being in the eye of a hurricane, that is why that's effective to me. And I like that you can see through there. You can see all of the text of the book. And then spot varnish. Love spot varnish. I wish that you could feel this through the screen because it feels so nice. This one now is an interesting example of how I don't normally like just straight up photography on a book, but it works for me. I've talked about this book in its own video and how much I love the design of the whole thing itself. It's, I don't know why, it's got this little flap, and it's just like, I don't know. You can't really tell because you can't feel it, but it just feels different. It's a different size than normal books. It's wider. But I just think it really works. The title here and the different font used here and the juxtaposition of these pictures, and maybe I'm completely biased because I look at this and I just see 100% my childhood because I'm from Florida. But it just really grabbed me. And in that case, it was a good feeling I got about it. It was true because it was actually an incredible book. Now, I thought I would do a couple that are from my childhood, a couple of my favorite books, to kind of look at what grabbed me when I was a kid. And this was one of them. Troy. I don't know, when I was a kid I was like, ooh, big graphic title, I know what to expect, and then you get a little hint of this here. I was obsessed with all of this kind of, any kind of like Greek and Roman gods and goddesses, like historical stuff. That was like all I was reading. But yeah, I just thought that was cool to look at. You know, a lot of those books you can't see, but like the top shelf and most of the second is it's all young adult or even younger. And this one was one of my favorites. This ring light it's not working with me. The City of Ember. And even when I was a kid, see, just such a simple cover. I love the way that Ember is written into the filament of the light bulb, and I absolutely adored this series. And it scares me to think like going back and reading the books that I really loved, because what if I don't love them as much anymore? But they did like what their purpose, they fulfilled their purpose, because I absolutely loved them when I was a kid. Now, here's some that I don't love. I don't love the covers. And let's see, I love all of these books. So all of these were ones where or most of them were ones where I knew what I was getting into, so I would have bought it no matter what the cover was. But this one was one that I fought with for a long time. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I read this like right before the American film came out, the first one. This was like 2011, I think. And I'd fought with it for a while because I was like, why is everybody talking about this? This was back in the day when I like wouldn't have anything to do with stuff that I considered mainstream. I'm not like that anymore, but I do still kind of wait a little bit before I get into things, just to let the hype die down. But I would see this at the store when I was, I think I was like high school age, and I'd think, what's the big deal? Like, the title and the cover look so stupid. I was like, I don't want to read about some girl with a tattoo. Like, what's that about? And I still have a major issue with the fact that they changed the title when they translated it from Swedish. I don't like that. It takes away the meaning. And in this case, I think cheapened it. But yeah, I just didn't love the cover, because I don't know, the illustration in the background's not doing it for me, the color's not doing it for me. I don't think it really represents the book. Like, I would have done something much darker. And I can show you even right here. I have, like, I don't love this cover either, but this is the Swedish cover, at least one of them. Come on, ring light. And I got that in Stockholm. And you can see the original title, which means Men Who Hate Women. But see, this is much more like, I think, what the book's vibe is, which is really dark. Didn't love the cover, loved the book, loved it. This is a recent one, and I picked this up in the store just because I would have read anything that was about Titanic, but I didn't love this cover. I don't like the font. The font to me looks, and even this illustration, and the way that they put these words here, I think it all just looks really juvenile. It looks like a young adult book, like totally 100%, but absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I would just redesign the cover if it were me. And this one, it kills me to say it, but Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. I love My Favorite Murder, and I got this book as soon as I possibly could, and just never understood the cover design, because this font, I don't like this font, and I don't like these sort of like little arrows. To me, it looks unfinished. It looks like a proof copy. It's not ready yet, and I just think, I don't know, their podcast is so great, and they could it could have had like a much more impactful cover, even just by changing the font. All you'd have to do for me is just change the font. And then you get their lovely pictures on the back, which is nice. And I loved this book, it was great. And then we have 2 George Saunders books, 10th of December and Pastoralia. This just does nothing for me. I got it because I know I like George Saunders and I already knew a couple of the stories in it. The graphic does nothing. And then this one, I could almost go in the Deceptive pile because this just, I feel, does not represent the book at all. It's called Pastoralia and it's got this deer. Like, if I didn't know that this was a book of weird short stories, I would be like, what's this nature writing thing? It just didn't fit. So then we have a little pile I'll try to get through quickly of books that deceived me. This one I always wanted to read because I love anything to do with milk. I just love the word, I love the idea, I love anything about milk. So Milkman by Anna Burns. I liked the colors of this cover and I liked the minimalist title up here, and it's also, you can't tell but it sticks out. Couldn't deal with this book. I actually ended up having to read it for university, and so I was like, great, I wanted to read this anyway. There are almost no paragraph breaks in this book. I won't even get into it right now because I don't have the time, but I could not, I just didn't like it, and I was so disappointed. And same with this one, The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. He's really hit or miss for me. I really liked Never Let Me Go. The Remains of the Day was okay. This one, almost had to not finish it, and I always finish books. But I was like, I like the illustration, I like the title, and I like this description about post-Arthurian Britain and whatever. It sounded interesting. It did not work for me. That book did not work for me. The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. I have talked about this one in a video. I loved this cover just because it has so much texture to it, which you can't feel, but it has a lot of texture. And I liked the vibe that title gave me. And then the book, the style, unfortunately fell flat for me. Because it was like trying to be a Victorian book, but wasn't. So now this one I just think is deceptive. I love this book, and this is the first book I ever covered on my channel. But I just think the cover doesn't match with what this book is. Yeah, there's a lot of different images that I think they could have used for it. Not that it's a bad cover, I think it's pretty good because it does the thing where photography, you use that bottom portion. But just didn't feel like it represented it. Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury. Now, I read this years ago, so don't hate me. I didn't love it when I read it. Maybe I would like it better now, but this is one where I love the cover, I love how graphic it is, I love this cutoff here, and I didn't like the writing style, unfortunately. Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. This is not a bad cover, and if you've watched my video, you'll know I loved the book, but I waited so many years to read it because the cover just wasn't really doing anything for me. It wasn't telling me, I think, the right thing that I needed to know about the book. When I finished it, I just thought, yeah, that cover doesn't really match completely. I mean, I get what they're doing, but for me, it didn't feel like it really went with the book. And this one, don't hate me, The Alchemist by Paulo, I don't know how to say this, Coelho. I love this cover. I love the texture. I love the graphic. I like the back. Did not like this book at all. It's just an allegory. It's so like, let me teach you a lesson. Didn't like it, but I do love the deckled edges on the pages. I don't know if you can see. I love when the pages look like that. So that was a lot of books, and there are so many more that I could have shown. But I hope that gives you an idea of what I think is cool, like what I like to pick up when I see a book. And I definitely have bought books based on their title and cover and then hated them, and vice versa, hated the cover, loved the book. Do what you want when it comes to judging a book. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You read another book? So let me know your thoughts on your favorite book covers, alright? And I will see you all next time.